How's it going, everyone? Kenny from Team Moistar here, and today I'm going to be going over my Arceus Flying Pikachu Alolan Vulpix deck. Now, of course, we've seen variants like this in the past. We've seen ADP, which was Arceus Decidueye, ending up winning the Arceus Decidueye Pikachu deck ended up winning Worlds. We've seen Makani Cheren consistently top tournaments with Arceus Flying Pikachu Espeon variants, even sneaking in the Vulpix at times. But we're going to be looking at it for Paldea Evolved and my take on it. Now, of course, the deck revolves around Arceus V STAR's Attack Trinity Nova, doing 200 damage for 3, attaching 3 basic energy from your deck onto your Pokemon any way you like. Also, having the Starbirth ability is amazing, being able to search your deck for any 2 cards you want. This comes with the Bibarel package, so you kind of have late game draw, so that you're able to just kind of like be Iono / Judge proof. You're able to dig a little bit further than what you could, and if you get passed, it's another way around that. So that's a very, very good combination. We do play a 2/2 Vulpix. Vulpix V-Star has the attack Snow Mirage for a water and 2 colors to do 160 damage, and then this attack's damage isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon, but during your opponent's next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon from attacks from Pokemon that have an ability. So essentially, Gardevoir cannot do damage to you whatsoever with any of their attackers outside of Memory Skip Ralts. Maybe they sneak in a Mimikyu. Mimikyu EX was snuck in here. That I think myself and a couple other Michigan locals ended up revolutionizing Mimikyu EX, and then Gabriel Smart ended up playing it at one of the regionals. I can't remember which one it was though, and ended up doing really well with it. So if they end up playing that, boohoo, things happen. But we have the V-Star attack on this one, Silvery Snowstar. It does 70 times for each Pokemon V in play on your opponent's side of the field. This, of course, is a instant out against Mew VMAX if they're not careful. Having Spiritomb from the new set, though, with Fettered in Misfortune, basic Pokemon V in play have no abilities. Of course, we don't really have to rely too much on that. We don't play Lumineon or anything. So having that in play cancels out stuff like Genesect, which will immediately hurt Mew. It just is a nuke button that says, okay, cool, can you deal with this? No? Okay, I'm going to get my setup going while you're sitting there. Silvery Snowstar will be live at that point. And Trinity Nova could knock out Genesect. We do play a 2/2 Flying Pikachu VMAX. Flying Pikachu VMAX has the max balloon attack for a lightning in 2 colors. It does 160 damage, and during your opponent's next turn, you prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from Pokemon Basic. So essentially, it stops dang near everything in Chien PAL outside of Palkia, and I don't think they want to drop a Palkia against a Flying Pikachu VMAX. Stops a lot of Lost Box pieces, if not all of them. Of course, they could go Dragonite, they can go Sableye. Just one of the many things that they can do against it. Against Lugia, you do hit weakness, which is phenomenal too. The rest of the list is pretty simple. It's just a Rope, a Switch, 4 Nest Ball, 4 Ultra Ball for consistency. Triple Lost City, that's something I'm bouncing around with, seeing if that's really what I want to do with it. Maybe testing Artisan too, but Lost City seems to be the most consistent one. Being able to just Lost Zone one-ups, being able to Lost Zone just immediate pieces so you never have to get them Super Rodded, especially with Super Rod back. Like, Lost City is going to be more important than ever. Just being able to get rid of those pieces so they can't recur some. Getting rid of Gardevoir pieces is huge. 3 Boss, 1 Cheren, 3 Iono, 3 Judge, 1 Raihan. I feel like it's just kind of standard in a deck like this, where you're just able to instantly disrupt your opponent as much as you possibly can. You don't really need Research / Chorus in here. Just being able to run through your deck as much as you do anyways with Bibarel and Starbirth is pretty good already. And then we play 2 copies of Panic Mask, something that hasn't really seen the light of day in competitive play until recently. Panic Mask is a tool card where you prevent all damage done to the Pokemon this card is attached to by attacks from opponent's Pokemon that have 40 HP or less. So Gardevoir, in order to knock out VMAXs or V-Stars for the most part, have to put themselves at very low HP in order to attach a bunch of energies, and when they do that, you punish them by putting down Panic Mask and saying, okay, you cannot hurl around an Arceus V-Star, especially a Vulpix V-Star or an Arceus V-Star with a V-Guard. It gets really tough for them to do it. Of course, Reversal Energy is live in the format now, so they can kind of maneuver around that, but that's why Vulpix is in here, is to stop those Pokemon with abilities from doing it. You can also hit certain Pokemon, like Mew VMAX even. You could go, okay, Silvery Snowstar didn't quite get there. I'm going to get 2 Pokemon and play double Panic Mask. You don't have Lost Vacuum, they can't do damage. They can Psychically, but then that like sets them back a whole turn. And then we have, for the energy count, we have 4 double turbo, then we have the new Jet Energy, as long as this card is attached to a Pokemon that provides a colorless, but when you attach it from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon, you switch it with the active. I think it's a really neat card in case you don't have access to switches, so that you could go double turbo turn 1 onto an Arceus, and then you could Starbirth for Jet Energy and push it into the active. It's even just a colorless if you need it. Flying Pikachu is free retreat, so if you end up having, per se, to attach to the Flying Pikachu to get out of the active spot, or just in general having anything to push it out of the active spot on a Bibarel, it's very, very good. 1 V-Guard, 3 Lightning, and 5 Water. So let's try this deck out.
So I knew from the mulligan that we were playing against Giratina. The Giratina deck is not really that favored for us. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of our worst matchups just because they can knock out Arceus and all of our pieces because you don't lock anything down and they just do 280 and auto knockout with Star Requiem. So our opponent just pops off turn 1, ends up getting the Battle Pass, gets down Giratina and Greninja, gets the Comfies out. And my opening hand goes double turbo Judge into another Arceus and Trinity Charge. So in this matchup, I just want to load up a couple Arceuses so that I'm able to swing for 200 damage. If I go into Vulpix, it's not really doing anything, and I'm not doing enough damage. Same thing with Pikachu. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't do enough damage. However, that's going to be some irony in a little bit here. So I decided to Trinity Charge on the active once, and then 2 on the bench, just so I'm able to attach once onto the bench at Arceus with a V-Guard energy and swing for 200 damage. Our opponent really pops off and gets a bunch of cards into the Lost Zone, and then plays Jet Energy so that they're able to go into Cramorant. And then they play down Path to the Peak, which auto I have on Stadium card to replace it with, and I immediately go into Starbirth. And from here, I'm thinking, what 2 cards do I want? And then I look at the hand. I'm like, I should probably disrupt their hand and then go V-Guard. I was debating Cheren for a second, but I was like, nope, I should just go in and swing. Because I already take the knockout here. And then I go Nest Ball for Bidoof so I can get late game draws now that I know they have Path. And then I take the knockout with Power Edge and Lost on the Cramorant, which may or may not have been a mistake at first because I thought about it and I was like, well, that powers up Star Requiem a little bit quicker. But I had to replace it for Path. So then they go Comfy, then they go Lost, they go Mirage Gate into Giratina V-Star. They go Concealing Cards to draw 2 cards here, and then Pokegear. And at this point, I'm like, really? They just, Lost Box just always hits Chorus, no matter what they do. They just always draw Chorus. So they're at 9 cards into the Lost Zone. And then I'm thinking, yeah, they probably have an energy. They go Rope. I throw up the Bidoof. I'm like, if they lost Impact to Bidoof, this is fine. And then they go into Comfy, put down Sableye, and I'm thinking, well, they can do 110 and knock out the Arceus, or they could damage the Arceus V Star, and then they go into Path and Pass. And right here, I top deck the Cheren, and I'm like, well, I can do something funny. I can do Jet Energy Cheren to get it out of the active, and swing with Arceus, and put down a clean Arceus V for the next turn. And I'm like, wow, that's actually, that's a pretty neat interaction. All while they're still under their own path lock, because I don't need it anymore. I genuinely don't really need my abilities. Then they go attach into Giratina V-Star, and at this point I'm like, okay, they just Star Requiem, the one with the V-Guard, which sucks, and then they just take a knockout of the next one because we only play a single copy of V-Guard energy. So at this point I'm like, okay, I need to load up another Pikachu. Like, I need to load up something, preferably Pikachu though. And then here I'm like, well, crap, I didn't draw anything. And then I top deck Nest Ball. I'm like, all right, cool. I didn't replace the Path with Lost City, as you could, clearly see. I was like thinking about it, and I'm like, nah, Path still hurts the Greninja. And then I decided to Power Edge for 130 just because I feel like the math was there. And I said again, I'm like, they always just, of course, have Chorus. Bench another Giratina, and at this point, it's kind of weird because I could have Trinity Charged, but that wouldn't have done anything for me. I really needed to get the damage down for 130 so I can make math work for the Flying Pikachu. So I just promote the Flying Pikachu, and I'm like, how many Lightning do I have? And then I immediately top deck and go Iono, get rid of their huge hand under Path. And then I ended up drawing the Pikachu VMAX and my last Lightning Energy. And then I risk it all on a Thunder Shock. And I end up whiffing the Thunder Shock. So at this point, I'm like, come on. I just lose here. And then they just pass. I'm like, huh. That's kind of interesting. So then I go Ultra Ball, and I'm like, okay, what exactly do I have access to? Can I afford a second Flying Pikachu in case they just go Sableye when I'm, like, still having 2 prize cards left? So I go in for it, and I dig for a DTE, and I miss. So then I go for a Thunder Shock again, and I'm like, okay, cool. I end up getting the heads. This is phenomenal. And then they go Nest Ball. I didn't seem to grab anything, and then they ended up passing. From here, I did something a little weird. I decided to attach to the benched Flying Pikachu and evolve the benched Flying Pikachu. This was purely because I knew I had more outs to DTE, and if I slam down the lightning on the active and start swinging, if that gets severely damaged to the point to where I can't really use it, then it doesn't work anymore. And I knew I could Lost City the Sableye and then stop a Shred. So that's something that I was like heavily considering in the late. Ended up attaching the Panic Mask, drew into Boss, so I was like, okay, I could go Boss after this, I could Judge, but they have 3 cards in hand, do I need a Dig? And at this point, I'm like, no, I've gone this far, I could Thunder Shock again, I flip Tails. And I'm like, well, if they just have Rope anyways, they just pretty much have it, and then they Boss up to Bibarel. And I was like, okay, that works, and then I top deck the DTE, have the Rope, have the Boss to get rid of their only real threat on the board being the Giratina. And then I took them out after an Industrious Incisors, have the next switch so in case they boss again. But looking at it, they had a Lost Zoned boss, and then they ended up playing that one. So I'm like, I don't really think Lost Tina plays 3 boss. I ended up drawing the Raihan too late. Raihan doesn't really do anything here. Ends up going with a Flower Selecting here. Got the Switch Cart. The Switch Cart's going to bring up the Sableye and benches. The Spiritomb doesn't really hurt us, but that Judge definitely did. It's going to get us out of a lot of outs. And then they go Sableye. They're going to put about 60 damage on the active, and then the rest on the bench Flying Pikachu, which was a little peculiar to me because I didn't think they could take a knockout with anything anymore. So I just started benching things because I'm like, you know what? If I really need to hit a Lost City here to get rid of the Sableye, and I missed. So I ended up just finding a DTE, attaching it into the Pikachu, getting all my resources out, and then going Max Balloon and saying, okay, if you have it, you have it. If you don't, there's potential that I win off of a boss. They go Flower Selecting. They have 8 cards left. So at this point, I'm like, if I hit Iono while they're still under Path, like, they still have to commit more energies to discard. There's the Jet energy that they ended up using on their own Comfy to push up and draw more cards. So this game went from pretty unplayable to being ahead in prize cards and the potential to win. That's just kind of what this deck can do. Also, Giratina runs out of resources really quick. And then I benched all those pieces just to draw into all of the evolutions that I don't need. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, if they do not have a way to heal this Giratina or boss up something in stall, I will win the game on the next turn. And then they go Rope. I confidently promote the Bibarel. I'm like, okay, if you don't have it, you don't have it. And at this point, I see they go down to 1 card. I noticed that they have 1 Super Rod down, but I haven't seen a Recycler or a second Rod. And they still had a Gate hiding somewhere. So there they go, Rod, and then they end up attaching for turn and Mirage Gate. And I knew if they had their 4th Rope, the game is over. And then they decided to pass. And I was like, oh, sick. We just stole this game away. There's no way we ended up stealing that game. And we ended up prizing our last Lost City in order to Lost Zone to that Sableye earlier. But it was just a really, really close nail biter for that one.
I thank everyone for watching. Please subscribe and like for more content. If you'd like to see decks like these, post them in the comment section below what you would like to see next in the oncoming weeks for NAIC. Till then, see everyone later.